Imagine a courtroom packed with tension, where every word carries weight and the stakes couldn't be higher. On one side, the Honorable Chief Justice of the United States, John Roberts, known for his intellect and commanding presence. On the other, legendary actor and deeply principled thinker, Denzel Washington, calm, composed, and razor-sharp. No one expected what happened next. In a stunning twist, Denzel Washington didn't just hold his ground. He outsmarted one of the most powerful legal minds in America. The courtroom was left in disbelief, and the moment quickly made headlines. Today, we revisit this electrifying clash, a battle of words and wisdom that proved Denzel is far more than just a Hollywood icon. In a setting where legal expertise and procedural command usually dominate the room, Denzel Washington's presence brought an entirely different kind of authority, one built not on courtroom experience, but on intellect, principle, and the ability to dissect arguments with surgical precision. As the session began, no one anticipated that the Hollywood actor would stand toe-to-toe with Chief Justice John Roberts, a figure renowned for his deep understanding of constitutional law and sharp judicial reasoning. Yet, from the moment Denzel rose to speak, it became clear that this was no ordinary courtroom exchange. He didn't just make a point, he shifted the atmosphere. His demeanor was calm, his posture confident, and his tone measured, yet every word landed like a strategic blow, crafted not for applause but for undeniable impact. Observers initially expected Denzel to falter under the pressure, assuming his fame and charisma would be overshadowed by the formality of the courtroom. But as he began laying out his arguments, it was evident he had come prepared. Not only had he mastered the facts of the case, but he had also immersed himself in the nuances of legal interpretation, precedent, and the philosophical roots of the Constitution. His articulation blended plain-spoken logic with the eloquence of a seasoned orator. This was not just an actor stepping into a courtroom. This was a mind prepared to challenge authority on equal intellectual footing. Denzel began by questioning the assumptions embedded in Roberts' initial interpretation, not through confrontation, but with carefully layered logic. He asked pointed questions that exposed potential flaws in the framework being presented. For every claim made by the justice, Denzel countered with a historical precedent or an alternative reading of the law that redirected the momentum of the argument. The courtroom, once comfortably aligned with the Chief Justice's cadence, began to pivot as listeners were drawn into the rhythm and clarity of Denzel's delivery. It wasn't just about speaking, it was about thinking out loud, allowing everyone in the room to follow the path of his reasoning and arrive at the same unsettling conclusion. He might be right. As Denzel continued, he brought in references from legal history, citing landmark decisions and lesser-known dissents, demonstrating not only the breadth of his preparation, but also his ability to identify patterns in judicial behavior that most casual observers, and even some professionals, might overlook. He spoke of justice as both a legal principle and a moral compass, blurring the line between law and ethics in a way that felt profoundly necessary. His words weren't just technically correct, they were grounded in a deeper conviction that resonated beyond the court's walls. What was most striking wasn't the content alone, but the way he maintained control of the courtroom energy. Every time Chief Justice Roberts attempted to regain the upper hand with his psalm, Chief Justice John Roberts, known for his poised demeanor and razor-sharp judicial mind, is rarely caught off balance. With decades of experience in constitutional law and a reputation for measured logic and commanding presence, he is often regarded as one of the most intellectually disciplined figures in the American legal system. That is why the courtroom audience was stunned when, during a live and highly publicized legal hearing, Roberts found himself on the defensive, visibly surprised and momentarily thrown off by none other than Denzel Washington. The shock wasn't rooted in disrespect or disruption, but in the way Denzel delivered his argument with such precision, insight, and unexpected depth that it left the Chief Justice momentarily struggling to maintain the upper hand. From the outset, Roberts had entered the courtroom with a confidence that typically accompanies someone of his status. His opening remarks were structured, authoritative, and laced with technical legal terminology meant to assert command over the proceedings. As always, he expected a certain rhythm to unfold, a rhythm dictated by judicial protocol, structured exchanges, and a clear separation between authority and audience. But what he hadn't anticipated was that Denzel Washington, often known to the public for his film roles and charismatic persona, would so deftly penetrate the formal barriers of the courtroom and engage him not only as a participant but as an equal, and in some moments, even as a superior in the legal and intellectual debate. Denzel did not challenge Roberts with loud confrontation or dramatics. Instead, he employed the power of quiet conviction and relentless questioning. Every sentence he spoke was like a mirror, reflecting back the assumptions and implications of Roberts' interpretations in real time. It was not just what Denzel said, it was how he said it. With calm articulation and an unwavering gaze, he asked questions that sliced through the legal formality and forced Chief Justice Roberts to re-express, clarify, and, in several moments, completely reframe his points. Roberts, who is used to crafting questions designed to expose weaknesses in others' arguments, was suddenly on the receiving end of that very method. Only now it was being wielded by a man who, by all conventional standards, should not have had the legal acumen to pull it off. The Chief Justice responded initially with careful detachment, trying to reassert control over the exchange. But Denzel, unshaken, continued pressing, not rudely, not arrogantly, but with the kind of directness that demands engagement. He referenced court decisions, quoted prior statements from Roberts himself, and drew connections between precedent and moral consequence that made theoretical principles suddenly feel dangerously relevant. The courtroom, used to the smooth, flowing cadence of judicial dominance, was now witnessing a series of pauses and hesitations from the Chief Justice, tiny gaps that signal. The clash between Denzel Washington and Chief Justice John Roberts sparked more than just media buzz. It ignited a nationwide debate that extended far beyond the courtroom. What unfolded in that dramatic legal setting touched on deeply rooted issues of power, intellect, and respect, forcing the public, the press, and even legal scholars to reevaluate long-standing assumptions about who holds authority and why. It wasn't simply a matter of an actor debating a judge. It was a symbolic collision between institutional prestige and individual intellect, between inherited authority and earned respect, between formal systems and raw, undeniable reasoning. The aftermath was swift, intense, and wide-reaching, with conversations erupting across political, academic, and cultural spaces. The moment Denzel began to push back against Chief Justice Roberts' assertions, viewers watching live or later through clips online were captivated not just by the clash itself, but by what it represented. Here was a public figure, known globally for his performances on screen, engaging in an intellectual confrontation with one of the most powerful legal minds in the nation, and holding his ground. The dynamic was unprecedented. It challenged the idea that wisdom is reserved for those within elite institutions, and it inspired people to question how we define intelligence and who gets to wield it in public discourse. In classrooms, on social media, in newspaper op-eds, the question was asked again and again: did Denzel just outthink a Supreme Court justice? What added to the weight of the event was the level of civility and focus with which Denzel approached the clash. He didn't shout, didn't resort to emotional appeals or grandstanding. Instead, he navigated the discussion with a logical structure and moral clarity that left even critics acknowledging the strength of his arguments. This struck a nerve nationwide, especially among those who often feel silenced or overlooked by institutions that seem closed off to outside voices. Denzel's performance, if it could even be called that, served as a reminder that intellect isn't confined to ivy-covered walls or marble-floored chambers. It exists in experience, in reflection, in observation, and in the courage to speak truth to power. For many Americans, especially those skeptical of establishment authority, this moment became emblematic of a larger cultural shift. There was a sense that Denzel, in that courtroom, was speaking not just to Roberts, but to every system that tells people they're not qualified to participate in the conversation. The legal world is often seen as inaccessible, cloaked in language, precedent, and hierarchy that alienates the average citizen. Denzel cut through that illusion with calm precision. He made the courtroom feel like a public forum again, a place where clarity could trump complexity, and where truth didn't need to wear a robe to be heard. Legal analysts, political commentators, and public figures,